As the territory of the Virgin Islands continue to traverse through the global pandemic that is COVID-19, we here in the British Virgin Islands continue to do our part in navigating through these very difficult times. Joining us to discuss the burning issues confronting the territory along with his government's possible solutions is Leader of Government Business, District 1 Representative and Minister for Finance, the Honorable Andrew A. Fahie. From closed borders, business and the economy, the conversation of lives versus livelihood, a struggling tourism product, vaccine rollout, education, and the growing violence and war on drugs in the Virgin Islands. We cover it all. I'm Ron Grant, presenting to you, our viewers, the state of the territory of the Virgin Islands with Premier of the Virgin Islands, the Honorable Andrew A. Fahie. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
What in the hell?
I'm freaking out!
Is about these people.
It's always a pleasure coming to you live and direct from the...
What's poppin'? What's really good?
Davis has won it for the Lakers!
Viewers, good morning to all with a special welcome to our viewers across the territory of the Virgin Islands. I'm Ron Grant. Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us. Honorable Premier, good morning. Thank you so much for your time and welcome back to 284 Media, sir.
Yes, good day and God's blessings to all the listening audience, and it's a pleasure to be here back here at 284.
Now, let's get right into the conversation, sir. The seaports opening this Wednesday, April 15th. The territory will be reopening its seaports. Exactly how many persons will be allowed to travel via the ferry, and what is expected, the expected time frame? We've been hearing only 50 passengers per day, and only one ferry would travel per day. Kindly clarify.
Yes, it's Thursday though, Thursday the 15th.
Yes, correct.
Originally, the schedule that was agreed by both the BVI and the USVI's authorities was that the ferries will leave at 10 a.m. and then from BVI and then return from St. Thomas at 4 p.m. But under further negotiations, the schedule has been adjusted where they will leave BVI at 8 a.m. and relieve USVI at 4 p.m. I also must say that further adjustments are being discussed because through representation by Honorable Vincent Whitney and also Honorable Shireen Fax-Charles in terms of making sure that we include the persons from Virgin Gorda and Edigada and also Joseph Dykes to give them opportunity if they need to catch the boat to go to St. Thomas to be allowed with a time frame. So that is also might cause our other time change, as well as it will allow within the next 2 weeks or so to add in more scheduling changes to allow for more trips as the initiative progresses. So on Thursday is the first trip, that's the reopening of the sea borders. Of course, persons would know that you cannot just travel like you want like before. No matter what destination you are going to right now, you have to also check on what the health protocols are for whatever the destination you're going to, and USVI is no different. So it's not the same as before. In terms of you go and you book the ferry, but you have to make sure whatever the USVI health protocols are that you adhere to them so you can be admitted into the USVI. And when you do reach the USVI, it is important to know that before you leave, if you're coming from the BVI, in order to return, you have to also get clearance through the gateway, which is the same measures that have been taken at the Terence B. Lettsome International Airport. So it's not as simple as just buying a round trip ticket anymore. And then when you get a clearance from the gateway, then you'll be able to get on the ferry boat. It's 50 passengers right now,
Okay.
and that the reason for that is to allow for the social distancing, to adhere to all the health protocols. As time progresses, we will be meeting so that we can make other adjustments, of course, balancing lives with livelihoods as we go along with our health team, which we have been very, very helpful along the way, and so to make sure that we contain as much as possible the spread of the COVID-19, but we do have to allow to live and work with COVID-19, so all of this now is a testament to the work that we have done in the past.
So that's 50 passengers per day, and can you confirm that one ferry will also be operating per day?
One ferry per day for now. That was, I understand, from BVI Ports Authority, who would lead the charge in that based on the law and the statutory authority, that they were able to negotiate that with the ferry operators and also the schedules thus far with the U.S. Authorities.
Now, as it pertains to cargo from the USVI, where will that go? Will persons have to be required to collect their cargo at Port Purcell?
Once it's not huge cargo, if it's a significant number of cargo and huge cargo, it will go back to the regular way of how it would have been if it's huge cargo. But if it's the smaller cargo, we will still allow it to be at the Rotang Jetty for now.
Okay. Now, Honorable Premier, we are all aware that day trippers are the livelihood and lifeblood, really, of many of our sister islands, from their tourism product and the economy. From Just Van Dyke to Anegada and, of course, Virgin Gorda, we are also quite aware that our neighboring USVI counterparts have been capitalizing in various ways, such as developing beach bars and products that will no doubt rival some of our establishments, such as the Willie Tea and the Soggy Dollar. They will also be having, or they also have had, their poker run. With this in mind, when will the government of the Virgin Islands allow for USVI day trippers back to the BVI?
Well, that question can be answered just blank in terms of just looking at the economy alone. We have to make sure that we balance the health safety protocol also. And I have to go back to say this. We have prayed along the way for the last year and change in COVID. We have followed the science. We have also made sure we kept our public officers hired, which was a tall order given the financial challenges that COVID-19 brought on worldwide. We have also made sure that we have pushed to get as much vaccines as we can get from the government of Dominica and from the United Kingdom, and also from COVAX that we have on order. And we have reached the point now where we are also educating before we vaccinate. And the reason that I have to bring this all up is we still have 12 ventilators at the Dr. D. Orlando Hospital. And we have to make sure that we balance lives with livelihoods. So we're encouraging, we're not mandating, but we're encouraging as a government vaccination. How does this fit into the question that you asked? Very simple. In order to relax the protocols that we do have, we have to take in consideration those persons that are vaccinated. And once is vaccinated and recognize that it's from a credible source, because there are persons who are getting involved in fake identifications for vaccination, then we can be able to further relax our protocols for persons coming in, whether local or foreigners, that have been vaccinated. This will allow persons now to be able to, first of all, one of the first things on the table being discussed is that eventually persons who are vaccinated will be able to come in and they'll do the day zero test, and they'll only have to stay in quarantine, so to speak, for the 24 hours or 36 the most for them to get back the test saying most likely that is negative. If you haven't quarantined, then you have to go through all the regular health protocols that are established because there's no other way around that. Having said that, we have done all of that and reached a point where we are trying to get as many people vaccinated as possible. To date, as I'm speaking, we're close to 9,000 persons that have been vaccinated, and the vaccine has expiration dates, so if not used, we have to make sure we send them back before they expire in this government's hand, which it will not. And then when it goes to persons who will need it the most. So we have reached the point that we've been going to fully open in June. Now, I want to say that the USVI, I am glad for them, I'm happy for them. But all along this journey, we have always been compared to everyone else, whether it be one of the other Caribbean islands or the USVI. And whenever we match up to them with the COVID-19, we were told to be like this one or be like the other one. And when we look, the protocols that were put in place by us stand the test of time. Now we have reached to the point where we have done all that we can to keep our people safe, and we are reopening the borders. We already now dropping the fees for boats so that they can be registered here, so that they can start their tours from here. Also home porting, we're dropping the fees for home porting so that we can make sure that we can start cruises from in the BVI. One of the unique things the BVI has is the 60 islands and islets. There's no other way in place in the world that has the kind of sailing capital that we have, and that's why we're known as the sailing capital of the world. So COVID-19 brought on some challenges where some of the market was drift away from us, not because we wanted it to, but because we were still in the middle of the stage of securing lives and finding the best balance between lives and livelihoods. Now we're going to start to walk towards continuing to strengthen the economy, which became weak not because of any doing of us, but the whole world's economy became weak because of COVID-19. So we're going to see a lot of initiatives that are going to be put in place where we're going to be bringing back our marine industry, and we're going to be bringing back stronger than ever. So what is ours, we will get it. And I commend my brothers and sisters in the United States Virgin Islands for how they are rebounded in terms of that area that they're doing. But we also will rebound, and we will be doing pretty well.
So it's safe to say, based on your statements, that you are of the opinion that we will not entirely lose all of our marine clients that we have lost so far to the USVI. Are you confident that we will regain some of that business, if not all?
I'm confident that we're going to do extremely well. I can't say we'll get back all, but we may get back more than what was there before and replace those that left.
All right, and as it pertains to the day trippers, we have no confirmed date as to when that is expected to be back in progress. Am I correct?
Not as yet, because with the health protocols, we're going to hear some amendments very soon, but that are for persons who have been vaccinated.
Thank you very much. Now, you have recently mentioned, Honorable Fahie, that the territory of the Virgin Islands will be fully reopened in June. Kindly provide us with some specifics. What will that look like? Many of our residents and visitors would like to know what to expect and exactly what that will look like in regards to operations.
Fair question. It will look like exactly what I just explained just before. There are persons for vaccination, there are persons against. And I've told persons the government's role is not to bully anyone or to intimidate anyone or to push anyone or force anyone towards vaccination. We see it as the most credible option to help our economy to rebound stronger than ever. In this vein, we are pushing and educating. So we're educating to make sure that we vaccinate. So with that in mind, when we reopen in June, by then many other protocols would have been put in place, and also more of our persons would have been vaccinated, hopefully. And with all of that being put in place, there are going to be some adjustments for persons that have been vaccinated. And those who have not vaccinated, the protocols still will stand, because we cannot afford for this contagious disease to seep into the borders and get away from us after all the hard work we have done. So there are benefits that are going to be derived from persons who have vaccinated. I want to say too, in June, for example, the cruise ships have come in, have agreed. We sign on to those cruise ships to come in June. When we sign on to them, it was not a popular thing at the time. Persons told us we made a mistake because the CDC has not approved them. Since then, we have found out CDC has approved a set protocol for cruise tourism to take place. So now, when we sign, we were on the mindset that from now to June, a lot will change. Now, when the cruise ships come, we have already had discussions with them where some are saying that we only want to go into stores where we can guarantee for our clients or passengers that those employees or owners are all vaccinated. We only want to go on with taxis that are vaccinated. This is not Andre Fahie, your premier, saying this to you. This is what the industry now is demanding. So if you go to a taxi as a passenger off the ship, chances are if they reach to a taxi operator that's not vaccinated, they'll say nix. And with that in mind, you can't blame the person who is paying for their vacation for what they see that they need to do to keep their family and themselves safe. What I'm saying is that the reopening, it's going to be one in which persons that are vaccinated will have certain advantages in terms of limited or eventually no quarantine. But we didn't reach to the no quarantine as yet. So the most you may have when you do come into the territory based on discussions and it's not edged in stone, but it's moving towards that, and the discussions are leading towards that, is that you'll be quarantined for the time frame just to get your day zero test to verify that you're negative, and then you'll be able to be free to roam in the BVI. So that will allow us to have more persons that will come more readily who are vaccinated, both through the air traffic and through the seaports.
Understood. Now, sir, at present, can private boats and charters now enter the BVI? If not, where? What are or will we be doing when it comes to the protocols for private incoming marine vessels?
It holds the same no matter what industry it is.
Okay. When
we reopen and we open fully, all the protocols that I mentioned is gonna hold same. So if you're coming over with for the private boats or whatever the case may be, it's just a matter of adhering to the health protocols. If you're vaccinated, it's a plus. It's going to help you tremendously. If you're not, well, you have to be aware of some of the measures that will still be in place for those not vaccinated. So it's as simple as that, to protect our people and protect our visitors, to balance lives with livelihoods.
All right. Now, we just spoke, of course, of the cruise port opening in June. When exactly in June will the opening take place, and what are the stages of the opening?
Well, the exact date, I don't remember offhand the date when the first ship will be in, but I know it's early June if I'm not mistaken. And with that in mind, those ships are coming where the passengers are fully vaccinated, the crews are fully vaccinated, and they're in discussion of certain areas certain islands that they contacted very early. The cruise ship industry works like this. You have to agree to be on the itinerary from early. You can't just put your finger out and stop a cruise ship when it's passing near you and say, come in. Because if you're not on the itinerary from the time they plan, sometime before COVID, they would plan a year or 2 years in advance. We're fortunate for them to select us based on them, as they said when they call, and being fully admiring, and also like how we have handled COVID-19 with the safety of the persons in the BVI and for visitors. And it was one of the key factors for calling us to find out if we will be amenable to allow ships to come in that are fully vaccinated. So they're going to come in fully vaccinated, and that will be a very good boost for taxi operators, for our storekeepers, for tourism overall. And also we're encouraging home porting, where some of the ships want to actually start from here, some of the smaller ships, and they are working with some of the airlines to bring in through the airlines at least about 150 to 200 persons every 2 weeks or so, based on what they have discussed with us. So there's a lot of negotiations going on that's going to be helping our tourism product to become even more buoyant than before over a period of time.
All right, so we don't have necessarily stages of the opening, but I want to also talk about the ramping up of passenger arrivals. How do we intend on doing this and increasing that?
In terms of from the seaport? Or
correct,
airport?
From the seaport.
Oh, that's very easy. After the first 2 weeks, we have agreed that we're going to reassess and then start to make some adjustments both in schedule and the number of persons that are coming in.
All right. I would like you to explain to us, sir, the cruise bubble. How will that work? What will be required of businesses that want to participate? Of course, considering that this is only 2 months out, what can they expect?
Well, as I said before, it's up to the passengers. Most that have spoken to us thus far are concerned about when they do come to make sure that wherever they go, as much as possible, if they can know that those persons that they're going to interact with, or that they're going to be allowed to interact with, are vaccinated. So it's going to be one in which, even if they do go in areas that persons are not vaccinated, then we here in the BVI who have not been vaccinated that want to deal with the cruise tourism persons would have to make sure we adhere to all the health protocols. This is one of those times that the market is going to dictate what is happening. So if you want to be in the market, you're going to have to make adjustments accordingly. It's the harsh reality, but it's not necessarily but the reality of the situation.
So for those who may not be aware, that is what the cruise bubble refers to, specifically to persons who are vaccinated or not vaccinated, and creating a bit of a separation as it comes to the tourism product. Am I correct?
For most of the clients of the cruise industry, when they contacted us, that was what most of them thus far, when I spoke with them, have been saying. Of course, it will not be all, but those are the concerns that they raised with us so that we could be aware. So I'm going off of what the industry has told us in meetings.
I want to touch on a little bit. You mentioned about over some 9,000 persons have presently received their first jab. What level of vaccination do you expect to reach in the community before the June reopening, or hope to achieve?
Our aim is to get 17,000 to 20,000 persons vaccinated, so that we could get as close close as possible or towards herd immunity. And in that, I want to say that I really want to congratulate our health team. It's over a year that they've been working, and it's very, very, very challenging around the world, because some persons speak as if the challenges of COVID-19 are only a BVI challenge, but they are global challenges. And also with the vaccination, I want to also give credit to all the businesses that are giving incentive for persons who are being vaccinated. This is a choice that the government has chosen to push the vaccination, to educate and to vaccinate. I saw persons like Dr. Harlan Vanderpool, who have been doing a very good job in the areas of doing the education, so persons can decide whether they want to take the vaccine or not. Most of them ended up saying yes. I saw Right Way did a vaccination drive in conjunction with the health team, and thank the minister and his team for allowing that to happen. Clarence Thomas Limited, with their incentives, we have one man coming aboard, and I understand that in discussions with Bobby's. And we also saw that the Red Cross did their initiative by the health fair, by Cedar School, and with the King Adam Bay Baptist Church. So more and more businesses are coming aboard to help with the vaccination. But we process. But I also saw where we, as a government, through the health team, was able to sign last week, Thursday, with the private practitioners, so that persons who have that confidence, which they should, in their family doctor, can now go to their family doctor and say, well, educate me on this process. And also, when you educate me on this process, you can also decide then if you're going to be vaccinated, and your doctor can take care of that for you free of charge. So I really give the minister and his health and his team for getting that done. We also have the bus. We have a mobile bus that will be moving around from I think it will really be about Friday or so, where we're going to be bringing the vaccine to you with the education to you. So we also see that civic organization and businesses are bringing in doctors and having debates and having discussion forums with doctors to listen to the pros and cons, and also to help persons in their group and also in their businesses to make up their mind towards vaccination. So there's a whole drive towards reaching that number of 17,000 to 20,000 persons that we're trying to push. But right now we're almost at 9,000 persons that have been vaccinated today while doing this interview here on the 13th of April.
On before, I'm happy that you mentioned it, because we were going to get to that. But as you mentioned the MOU, there are some persons who are of the understanding or the know-how. They're thinking that because the MOU was signed with the private medical practitioners, that at any point when they choose to travel or they do decide to get their vaccine, that somehow these vaccines will be on reserve. If I am correct, these vaccines will, of course, expire. So if they do not take advantage of it within the given time frame, they will essentially lose out. Am I correct?
That's a fact. And if you have to it will be an issue, because right now getting vaccines is an issue. This government has been extremely proactive, and not just saying it because I'm in the government or over the government. We have been extremely proactive in pushing to make sure that we have vaccines for all people. Right now it's only the AstraZeneca, but the deadline, the expiration date on these, some of them are at the end of May, some are at the end of June, and even at the end of July. But remember that you don't have much time with it, because based on the health team, when you take the first shot, you have 10 weeks before you take the second shot. So any movement towards taking the vaccine have to be decided upon now, because the private practitioners are getting their stock of vaccines from the stock that the government has imported, in terms of the government is the only supplier of those COVID-19 vaccines at this time. So you're correct. We do not have much time with it, and the government will not allow these vaccines to expire on their hands. So we will be packing them up. God forbid, I don't pray to see that day, but if it has to happen, it has to happen, and sending them back to whoever would need them more, because as a government, we continue to do all we can to make sure that our people are safe, and we'll continue to do so. But we do have limitations with the deadline on the vaccines.
Thank you for that clarification. And while we're on the topic of the vaccine rollout, since the very low numbers of locals have been going to take the first jab, why is it that we have not considered administering the second jab to the persons who have already taken the first one? And with that in mind, additionally, you mentioned that the possibility may arise that we have to return or send or give away the vaccines. When will a decision be made on this? And will it be done in time so that whoever the recipient country is, they don't also have an issue of receiving expired or almost expired vaccines?
Very good question. First of all, the second jab is not an issue. Persons already being given their date and are being called as we speak, letting them to know that this is the date for the second dose. So what has been done is the dosages for the second jab, those are already secured, because you take into account the number of persons that you have done with the first jab, and you make sure those doses are secured. So it's just a matter of the date. Up to yesterday, they called me and confirmed my date for the second jab, and they've been doing that for many persons. So that's already in trend. That's already happening, and you don't have to worry about that. If you're not sure, you can also call the health department, the Ministry of Health, and they will be able to let you to know when your next jab is. But that is being done. Persons are being called. In terms of the expiration date, that decision will be made very shortly, within the next week or two, of which ones we'll have to make sure that we send back. So with that in mind, that this is a fluid situation with it. So we're measuring based on time frame, that we don't send it back too late, as you said, so those who receive it will not be in a quandary and not being able to use it. So all those are being taken into consideration, and more information will be revealed weekly by the Minister of Health in this respect, so that persons will stay fully informed.
We have to touch, of course, on the port fee increases. Recently, you announced that the port fees will be deferred. Exactly which of these fees increase will be deferred? Are you specifically deferring the wharfage? What exactly are you deferring?
Everything else has been deferred except for the wharfage and the container fee. And when you add those fees into the price and you spread it across a container, it comes out to cents. We're also going to put a consumer protection in the unit in the newly passed in the House of Assembly Virgin Islands Trade, to ensure that the people of the Virgin Islands get their fair share of it, and we are fair to the businesses, we are fair to the consumers. But I need to state, though, that the port has not raised its fees in 25 years. It's not a license to raise it in these had difficult times. But in 25 years, the fees have not been increased. And the post is an independent body. Persons are saying the Premier could have gone and tell them do this and do that. That's not how it works according to the law. The BVI Post Authority is a statutory body, and they have a board in place. And the board, when it comes to certain decisions, the law says that they have to forward it to the Cabinet, and the Cabinet will carry it to the House of Assembly, just to have it laid in the House and be informed on. But with this now, the ports, with not raising its fees in 25 years, also had to loan some money to the TPP when it was being constructed, rightfully so that they can get that project going. So that was a couple $2 million that left the ports that never been paid back thus far in terms of the payment schedule, and given many situations that popped up. But in addition, the ports have also been faced now to having to be ready for international inspection, which they cannot afford to fail. And that dictates how many people have to be hired and where, from the security up to across the different diasporas of ports. I said that to give context, that given all of this, the ports were still able to, as we say in our dialect, bob and weave for a little while. But when COVID-19 came and the cruise ships stopped coming in, which was a crucial path of them making money, although the loan that from them to the TPP was not fully paid back as yet, it still allowed them to function. So it was not a bad thing overall. But then when the cruise ships stopped coming in with COVID-19 and the money is not being repaid, and you have to now adhere to all that the international regulators are asking for the upcoming audit in the III code, there became a problem that the can could not be kicked down the road any further. So the ports was asked to look this over. When they did hand it into the cabinet put a caveat in, letting them to know that you have to discuss this with the public, and also you have to do the public relation before it gets in. But in their haste, the ports implemented it. However, cabinet, before that implementation, had to carry to the House of Assembly, where it was laid on the table of the House of Assembly without any objection from neither the government side nor the opposition side. But the ports, as I said, in their haste, recognizing that needed some funding, put it in place without adhering to those measures that were put in place. Since then, they have spoken with stakeholders, they have done reconsideration, and they're now forwarding to the government of the Virgin Islands their new recommendations, which defer all the fees into 2022, deleted some of the fees, and I think that the only 2 or 3 of them were remaining, but I noticed the 1% has been changed to 2% of wharfage, and also the container fee, there's an extra charge on each container, but nothing that would cause any major adverse effects to the people of the Virgin Islands, like was the case with all those other fees being implemented at the same time. So I'm glad that the ports reconsidered. The voice of the people is the voice of God, and I thank persons for their patience. But as a government, we do recognize the hardship that persons are going through, and we ask them to strongly reconsider what they have done, and they have done so. So I do give the ports credit for that.
And with that deferring of the fees, is there an expected time frame in the next year that will take place?
Well, some of the fees have been deferred until next year. I think is January or February, somewhere in that region. But they also have some work to do. Some consultation with the stakeholders again, and the public relations dealing with it. So it's not just defer them and they're going to come into force without any consultation or public relation. Not this time. So the ports have their work to do, and this time I know that they won't drop the ball with it.
Thank you very much. Now I want to touch again on vaccines. What is the present protocol when accepting vaccination records from outsides? How does that work?
Well, this is a work in motion. That's why you're saying in the next 2 weeks or so, you'll hear the Minister of Health give more to that. There's a lot of technical aspects to it, and I don't ever give anyone the impression that I know it all in terms of vaccines, or know it all in terms of life in general. You get the experts, and we have been following the science, and we'll continue to do so. So in the next 2 weeks, the more in-depth information and accurate information will be able to come to you, the people of the Virgin Islands and abroad. And I will leave that up to them at that time, so that I don't say anything that's not accurate, dealing with what will be accepted, what will be looked for, etc. So they'll be coming back to you, the health officials and the Minister of Health.
I must ask, with the reopening of the borders, what systems are presently in place as it pertains to ramping up COVID testing capacity? We've heard some of these sister islands cry for having their own systems on their sister islands, but where are we with the move towards rapid testing?
Well, in terms of how the lab tests right now, we have to understand that the capacity of our health teams is no different anywhere else in the world. If you turn on the television, whether it be NBC, CNN, or in UK or wherever, or the healthcare system is stretched. And this team, a lab team and the overall health team, they have done a great job. And God bless their heart, soul, and bodies. And I really mean that. My heart goes out to them. And I answer it like that to say that quite a number of tests are done every day. Just the other day, when I went to do my COVID test after the 10 days quarantine, I was told that there was close to 500 tests was done on that day. And so it's quite a bit of tests, and they go out of the way to see how to assist getting it done to the sister islands. But remember, the lab is still right there here in Tortola, so there's certain limitations, but they continue to try to accommodate for our sister islands, brothers and sisters, as much as possible, and they'll continue to do so.
I want to touch a little bit on quarantine breaches. What exactly is being done to mitigate quarantine breaches? Now, it is no secret, Honorable Minister, that persons, be it locals or visitors, will unfortunately breach the quarantine if they can. What are we doing to preempt and protect from such breaches. Of course, the recent scare at a local funeral is a prime example. Outside of fines, is our system airtight in regards to tracking and controlling breaches, persons in quarantine, if and when they decide to do that? What systems are in place to protect us from that?
Well, I don't know any system in life that's 100% foolproof. All I can say is that the systems that we put in place for quarantine, we try our best to make sure that they work. Sometimes there are issues with them, like they are all around the world. Unless you put physical bodies in place, which is very expensive. We did that in the beginning because we had to, but we continuously using other methods to try to monitor and police the persons that are in quarantine. So we can only continue to use those methods, and as much as possible, unless it's high-risk persons, use physical bodies. So those methods have worked pretty decent. There have been some hiccups, and we are working on them. But I want to let persons know that this is a phenomenon that has been dealt with around the world, making sure the persons stay in quarantine. But at the same time, too, is up to the persons who are in quarantine to be more responsible also, and to let them and to know that you're not just saving your life, you're saving your mother's life, your wife's life, your children's life, your friend's life. Make sure you stay in quarantine for the time that is assigned to you. And also, at the end of the day, there are laws that we put in place to deal with persons who violate the quarantine period. And once the proper reporting is done, those persons have been dealt with. There are persons that have been fined. There are persons who have been dealt with in other ways as allowed by the law. And that will continue to happen. The law is there to discourage it, but you shouldn't wait for the law to click in for you to do what you need to do to make sure persons are safe, including yourself.
All right, I have to touch on the issue of labor and workforce development. You mentioned about persons really requiring us to have vaccinated persons. How will the Department of Labor here in the BVI manage the requests of companies to have vaccinated employees?
Well, first of all, I want to state that the government of the Virgin Islands, I'm going to repeat it very clearly, has not mandated to date that the persons must be vaccinated. However, we are strongly encouraging it because we see this as the only credible option for us to be able to balance lives with livelihoods and save lives and even save our economy and further strengthen our economy. I want to make that abundantly clear. Now, in terms of this aspect, this is an ongoing legal discussion and also matter in all countries just about right now. The persons who don't want to take the vaccine for whatever reasons, and the legitimate reasons too for some, they either have underlying health reasons, they have other areas that have them concerned for taking the vaccine in terms of their health. So that's their democratic right. But also at the same time too, they're saying, well, all right, we cannot be losing our job because of this. But yet there are employers now who also are making it a legal case that are saying, well, it is not a regular disease or regular virus. This is a contagious disease, and no one should have the right to be walking around free, allowing a disease to be spread from themselves to others, given that there are some kind of vaccine or some kind of quote-unquote medicine or technology in place to avoid that as much as possible. So this is not now a matter of just saying what your take is on it. This is becoming a legal issue, and one in which the government now have to even move to a level of getting the Attorney General's opinion on it before we start to speak beyond us saying right now that we have not made it mandatory, because both sides are coming out very forcefully, those who are not taking it and those employers who are saying that they want the employees to take it. So that is something that has to be knotted out in the next couple of weeks, not only here but worldwide.
Absolutely, and with that in mind, I'm glad you mentioned, of course, adding the Attorney General to that, because we wonder sometimes, and particularly in this case, I have to ask, will employees who refuse to be vaccinated receive severance benefits as if the company terminated their employment, or if they have effectively quit? When we come to that issue, what can we expect? How will that be navigated?
Could you just repeat that little last part for me?
Will employees who refuse to be vaccinated receive severance benefits as if the company terminated their employment, or have they effectively quit? How will that work for persons? Obviously, it's not mandatory. So when it comes to employment, will severance be looked at in this particular case?
But those are some gray areas that I really and truly refrain from going in. I'm going to let the Labor Department and the Attorney General office handle them. I have my own personal views, but these are nothing to be legal matters that I think that we need to make sure we have them clear, because this is a concern globally with businesses and employees, and I understand both sides' concerns, but this is one in which I would like for some time for us to get the legal opinion before I comment any further on those.
All right. Protocols have since been adjusted to allow for the 3 feet social distancing instead of 6 feet. As we look at education, hence, of course, allowing for more students to be allowed to face-to-face sessions. When exactly can educators, students, and parents expect to resume such sessions with the recent announcement?
Well, Minister of Education is working on that very furiously to have that done as soon as possible. I must state, though, that some schools were open, but based on the spacing and their size, as some classes were allowed to be in school, while there were some that were dealing with it online. And I understand the concerns of both educators, parents, and students. But I want persons to bear in mind, though, that this is not an issue that's local alone. This online learning as a result of COVID-19 has torn apart the entire world of concerns over education. So I like to research things before I speak on them, because I know that there has been a drive somehow to just blame the Minister of Education here in the BVI for not getting back into schools. But that is not something that he himself has brought onto the territory or to the world. That's something that all ministries of education throughout the world are grappling with. We have been able now to champion the cause to have it down to 3 feet. We were championing that cause before, but persons were saying that CDC and other health officials did not agree. Again, we were proactive, and now they have said 3 feet is accessible, is allowed. So the Minister of Education now and his team are working very furiously to make sure as much as possible that we have our students in school so that they can do the physical learning. There will still be some forms of blended learning that takes place in certain cases for some schools. But I must also state that I do strongly encourage, unless there's a health a deficiency, unless there's a medical reason or your human rights reason, I would still encourage as many of our teachers to be vaccinated. If you have concerns, the Minister of Education is also doing up a forum for teachers to make sure that they are educated more in it, their concerns are answered, and from the medical team, and also to have another extra drive to help to teachers in terms of being vaccinated, so we can help to ensure as much as humanly possible the safety of our teachers, or their support staff, the principals, and the students and parents, because we don't want to get a relapse of this and have to close back down. So I want to also plug that in there and say, yes, most schools are going to be open, but there's still going to be some blended learning. And the Minister of Education is coming out very soon with a more detailed speech, because he deals with this day to day. But I know this from our discussions of these areas as we have weekly.
Indeed. Now, the economic fallback of COVID-19 is definitely one that many residents, particularly all residents, are familiar with. Many residents have stated that there is a need for a second stimulus. Some of your colleagues in the House of Assembly, namely, the leader of the opposition, Honorable Penn, has publicly requested this as well. Can the territory expect a second stimulus? As Minister of Finance, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I want to say we don't print money. The U.S. just printed an extra $1.9 trillion to try to deal with the economic fallout of COVID-19. Other countries have reached a point that they have, I wouldn't say ignore, but they have no other choice. There's nothing else they can do. We're looking at it as twofold. We're trying to see how we can get some funds to help, but the greatest way to help this economic fallout is to, one, renegotiate with our banks to help our people, which we have already written to them, and also will continue discussions with them. Help persons in terms of expanding our economy, so that our economy can continue to be strengthened, so that our persons can rebound strongly, of course, with our guidance and assistance as a government, but as a people. in that vein, what we are looking at is that the stimulus is not only to get money in terms of government giving the stimulus, but to make sure that you make money. And with that now, we're trying to open up more and more and more so that persons can continue to go back to as close as regular as possible and normal, as we said. But I say into the new regular because they'll never be normal. So we're looking at the economy to do many things. For example, there are persons right now, Ron, that doesn't have, their homes have not been rented for a long time. Their villas have not been rented a long time. One of the programs we want to bring to fruition very shortly is one called the Work from Paradise, where you can actually work here but you have to rent homes from here. You cannot purchase homes. There's some stipulations that you get a chance to work from paradise for over a year without having to leave the country immigration-wise, but you'll be working from online. And there are other programs that we have in terms of invest and stay. So the persons who want to do certain investment here, whether it's manufacturing or otherwise, that for businesses that are not here and businesses that do not exist in the BVI but are welcome, but you must have the capacity to employ at least at a minimum 50 to 100 persons in the BVI, which will also help tremendously. We're also looking at doing innovative labs and also entrepreneurship sessions so that we can fast track trade licenses for people who want to go in some innovative areas that are linkage industries to a tourism product. We're also getting a gaming industry going, and where we will further amend to make sure that we include the online section. We're working hard to get the medicinal marijuana industry going. We have written to the United Kingdom. We're waiting on their response. And when I get the response, I'll let the people of the Virgin Islands know what they're saying, because I personally don't understand why the House of Assembly has to debate, and in the 21st century, we still have it where one person have to assent, or we have to go to the UK if they don't agree with certain things, to have it assented to and hold up a whole economy and industry in this way. So that there also is one in which we continue to push ahead for the people of the territory, because democracy have to be allowed to rule, and if there's an area legal-wise or any international things that we have violated, well, fine, but it cannot be held up off of persons' personal feelings. And we also see that we want to start with a home port, and as I've said, we want to bring back the cruise ship industry, which is starting in June. We're also looking at making sure that we reduce the fees to marine industry for persons who will register their company here and register their boats here, and also to do tours here, to have an advantage having your registration here versus if you just come in to do certain things, certain charters or certain tours. So we have a plethora of areas. We're also looking at very shortly in the next few weeks signing with a medical school that will bring in at least the minimum of 100 students, and another medical school that's coming in, which will help with strengthening our case with all that I've named for the lengthening of the airport runway at the TV Letsum, and also in Virgin Gorda. We're also looking at increasing the number of trips. Because of this, we want to make sure that the tourism industry is so buoyant with the medical schools, with all that else that we have named, and many other areas that I have not gone into, that we will be going into more and more and more, as this week I'll also do a speech on the economy, to make sure that where we fall short of not giving direct stimulus, that we can help our businesses to catch themselves back and beyond by making sure the economy is more buoyant. And that is the push that we're behind right now for our entire government.
I have to go back to your recent statement, Honorable Premier, in regards to the assenting of bills, and not only that, but the debating. Based on what you just said, are you of the opinion that bills should no longer be debated to the extent that they are required to be debated? Can you clarify?
Debated? No, that's not what I mean.
Okay.
We contrary to what I'm heard, this government has done more public consultation on bills and in other areas than I've seen in most of my political career. And you could check the record on it. Sometimes it's not as long as persons would like, but at the end of the day, persons' voices are heard for the most part. You can't debate every bill. That's impossible. But the ones that would seem most controversial or would have more effect on persons, you try to make sure that they're not only debated, but first they're available. And we've gone out our way through the GIS to make sure that we make every single bill that's there for our first reading available to the people of the Virgin Islands, that they can log on and get those bills, and also do it through the House of Assembly. Because once they do the first reading, they become a public document through the Gazette. They're gazetted, so they become a public document. So all of this we are going out of our way as a government to do. So the talk sounds good that they're not being allowed, the public is not being allowed to be informed, but we're pushing through. Right now we have done many public consultations with the Business Act, with Honorable Shireen Flax-Charles, the Junior Minister, working there on behalf of the Premier. And we're going to do many more now with the National Tourism Plan that we were looking at and speaking about ways to do it. Right now we're doing public consultations, starting even right now more intensified with the National Sustainable Development Plan. We have public consultations that are coming up that we've asked the police to go and explain to the people the Police Act, so we could look about making amendments and adjustments to get that passed. The whistleblowing legislation that we're going to do public consultation with, the Contractor General, you name it, there are a plethora of them that has been discussed. And the medicinal marijuana, it was a short deliberation discussion in the public, but discussions nevertheless they were had. And at the end of the day, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry in the world, and the UK is already in that industry. And all we are saying, we in the BVI want our share of that industry so that we can compensate our persons handsomely who get in these industries, or not even compensate, allow them to make the revenues. But we can also be able to make up for any revenues that may be lost because of the pressures being brought on by the UK and others on the financial services. So we cannot continue to bring pressures on us in one area, and when we try to free our people economically in other areas, then we are still cut off for whatever reasons. After the House of Assembly have done a full debate, whether persons agree or not, the majority end up voting for it. And this was one of those bills that there were no dissenting voices on it, along with some other bills and concerns that we have, that builds the question about what is true democracy in the 21st century, when you have a parliament discussing and approving bills, but yet you still have to wait for one or two persons that are not elected by the people of the Virgin Islands to decide if they will become bills and if they're good for the people of the Virgin Islands. This is not a knock against anyone. This is just that the need for constitutional review, which is what we are working on, and the need for democracy to reign in the 21st century is more prevalent now than ever.
Do you believe, Honorable Sir, in your expertise, that this is perhaps the best time for a constitutional review with all that's taking place, particularly amidst the global pandemic?
Of course. The constitutional review was due in 2017. Of course, we know what happened. And it's been 10 years in 2017 since we had the constitutional review. Now we're in 2021. One of the things that I've learned in life is that if you do not move forward, is never a good time. There's never a good time to do anything if you sit and evaluate all the issues that you have to go through. The people of the territory know exactly what they want for the future of this territory, independent of what political party is in power. Constitutions have absolutely nothing to do with political parties. It have to do with the aspirations of the people of the Virgin Islands. And there are many areas of the Constitution that needs to be amended and it needs to be revised, that will show that we, the people of the Virgin Islands, are acting under full democracy in the 21st century and not being told to do certain things, or being, I would say, coerced based on how things are crafted, that doesn't allow for true democracy to reign. People most times only watch to see if an elected official is allowing democracy. But at the same time, too, we have to look and see those who have to look over us to make sure that they too are moving in a democratic way, so that we can have full democracy being adhered to in the 21st century. And this is extremely important, and that also is something that's mandated by the United Nations, and we have to stay true to these things.
As we continue to watch how we are being parented, how do we navigate through that? Do we leave our parents' house, or do we continue to fight their rules?
That's the people's decision. But again, this is a next topic that whenever it comes up, people say we're not ready. I did research in when we were doing the 70th anniversary of the House of Assembly, the Legislative Council. I was amazed to find that in 1949, in my research, when Hope Stevens and all of his supporting cast, and Honorable Glennie Fonseca and De Castro and all of them, Honorable De Castro and all of them, when they were moving forward, yes, they had people rallying, but when you research it, there were also persons telling them, don't trouble this, leave this alone, no need to create any waves. But if you do not champion cause in a respectful manner and champion change in a respectful manner, you'll never get it. If you're looking for things to change and don't put any effort in it and don't expect that it's going to call for some sacrifice, it is tantamount for you looking for that change, is tantamount to sitting in an airport waiting to depart on your cruise ship. Because cruise ships don't come in at the airport. So you have to decide now how you're going to move forward. You have to do it in a respectful manner. But at the same time, too, when we look at what was said in 1992 by the late Honorable Lavity Stout and the late T.B. Letzam and the late Cyril B. Romney, in my research, they also said it is a time to educate our people and start to move forward. We are maturing in this. We have to move forward. Now, some persons would say, well, all right, the H.L. Stout was loved, so we felt safe on moving on with him. But to the contrary, when you research, there were persons saying, well, we don't trust the leadership. We don't think we should move forward at this time. We have to understand that the Virgin Islands Youth Parliament said it best, and I like how they debated this topic and the research that they did in this topic. And one of the things that they said that etched in the corridors of my mind is that any mother, worth its salt, would be happy to see its child develop and mature and be able to venture out and take care of themselves. We've been taking care of ourselves for a very long time. But yes, we cannot do it alone. I'm cognizant of that. But we have to come to grips to that in 2023, the United Nations is going to meet, and all countries, large countries, have to come to the United Nations and explain to them what are they doing to decolonize any territory that they have under them that's known to be a colony. And at this time, may I tell the people of the Virgin Islands that means that what we are saying, some of us saying that we're not ready for, is coming. The question is, do we let it catch us not ready? Or do we make sure that we get ready from now and educate ourselves? The future of this territory is extremely bright. And if we cannot see that like the forefathers have done, that they have been able to build this territory when it was left and known as just a bird sanctuary, when it was said that nothing good could come out of the BVI, nothing good could come out of Virgin Gorda, nothing good could come out of Tortola, nothing good could come out of Jocelyn Dykes, nothing good could come out of Anegada. We were left as a bird sanctuary, and we built this territory to the point now where our foreparents went. They went to St. Thomas, they went to San Domingo, they went all around, they came back here, they built this territory. And we saw now that we were able to build to such a level that all of a sudden now there are some who feel that it's not something that we can sustain and carry on from here. But we have generations coming up, and we go out of our way to educate our generation. We have more people in our BVI with a degree per capita than anywhere else in the world just about. And we have to safeguard our territory for them, because they are not going to handle situations like us. And they're not going to say that we have to be a child forever. So we have to start to educate and continue to move along the way towards what is imminent.
All right. Now, we continue to rage the war on drugs. We continue to see large drug seizures in the territory. Additionally, since the most recent brazen daylight execution, we have heard that the National Security Council has met and they are finding solutions. As a sitting member of the National Security Council, where are we on this issue?
Well, first of all, I want to state clearly that it is not good whenever you have to hear these things in your territory. But we always look at it from one angle, that drug busts happen 250 kilos. We look at it in that angle all the time. And whenever I say this, there are those who intentionally carry my statements internationally and distort them for their own reasons. But one thing we know is that the truth does not need anyone's belief. And everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but not to their own facts. We need to also state that our systems are working, and we need to celebrate them. Our customs officials are working, our immigrations are working, our police are working, and we have a good relationship with the U.S., with the Coast Guard system. We need to understand that rather than just looking at the angle of, well, it's not good that these things are happening, we also have to look, which is true, it's not good that they happen, but we also have to look and say, well, thank God that we have systems in place that are making sure that they keep us safe. And that is why I am against anyone who just promote us as a drug-running, drug-smuggling territory. I think that that is injustice to our forefathers, an injustice to the people of the Virgin Islands, to paint us all with the same brush, and to state that the majority of persons get their wealth through illegal means. Yes, we have negative entities in the BVI, but show me what country doesn't. If you research, whether it's America, United Kingdom, through the Caribbean, they're all places where drug busts and major drug busts are done. But you don't hear them come out and brand the entire US and brand the entire UK and brand the entire Caribbean as drug smuggling area. And I think that needs to stop. Our people, for the most part, are hard-working people. We sweat and toil. We send our children away, and while we have to sweat and eat sardine and rice home, we make sure that they're eating steak in school so that they can learn and come back and help this territory. We continue to put measures in place to strengthen our national security as much as we can advise, because we know that's a section under the governor directly. But at the same time, too, as a maturing country, we continue to invest in the resources for the police, invest in the resources for customs. And I dare anyone to say that this government has not done that. And I dare anyone to say past governments has not done it neither. But we are a small country and we continue to build. So I take serious offense as the leader of this territory when persons only try to look at the negative and paint us in the negative and only bring up the drug bust, but don't bring up the number of initiatives and resources that are put in place to make sure that we have these busts, and to make sure that we commend our officers for the work that they're doing, from Customs, Royal Virgin Islands Police, and even Customs, and to commend our people for the most part, where the majority of us are good law-abiding citizens. I ask those persons who are doing that to stop it, whether it be locally or internationally. Our foreparents have done well to build this country. We're continuing to build it. The negative entities, yes, we'll deal with them. The negative entities, yes, the law will deal with those. But I dare them, whoever open their mouth with it, to show me a country that doesn't have a issue with drugs and have an issue with certain illegal activities that they have to be able to look about how to contain, or issues with illegal smuggling of persons. Every place has its issues, and we are no different. And we're going to continue to strengthen our weak areas and strengthen our strengths.
Honorable Premier, speaking of painting a negative picture, the Commission of Inquiry was announced on the 18th of January 2021 to look into whether or not corruption, abuse of office, or other serious dishonesties may have taken place amongst public, elected, and statutory officials in recent years. Now, the Commissioner, Sir Gary Hickerburn, was sworn in on the 22nd of January and began his work from that date. Since then, the COI team has been actively conducting their investigations, gathering information. The team has recently, of course, returned to the territory. As leader of government business, what is your take on the COI, and as it pertains, just like we were talking about painting a negative picture, as it pertains to whether or not corruption, abuse of office, or other serious dishonesties may have taken place among public office or continues to do so, what do you think? When do you see persons painting this image that the BVI is somehow labeled as corrupt? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I want to state clearly to the people of the Virgin Islands, your government has done its best to make sure that they do whatever it has to do for you and your behalf above board. I want to make that abundantly clear. And I also want to state that we do support a transparent, independent commission of inquiry that will yield a just outcome. I know that I've stated before that we had no knowledge of the commission of inquiry by the former holder of the post as governor, and I will leave that there for now. And all I'll say to persons is that I pray to God that God Almighty would make sure that there's a just outcome. Because when you're destruction, when destruction is your motivation becomes your destruction. And I will say this, whether it is commission of inquiry or the constant negative connotation of this territory, all of it adds up to one thing, a very organized way of trying to paint the BVI as no good and the people of the BVI as no good. That is something that is alive from the pits of hell. And I pray to God that in His timing He deal with all of this, because some of the forces are greater than us here in the BVI, but they're not greater than God. And that's all I'll say on that for now.
Now, I must ask, regarding the COI, the government of the Virgin Islands secured legal services very early on in the stage, of course. Why was the legal representation sought so early? And as Minister of Finance, what is the cost of the services provided by the selected UK firm?
Well, we also need to know the cost of what it costs the UK to do the commissioner inquiry on their end. And, but we will reveal the reason now, which we have said clearly. And the reason is to make sure that the person that is being accused, which is the government, ensures that we walk along for a transparent and independent inquiry. Because in the 21st century, everyone has some rights, especially under the UN Convention. And we have to protect our rights. Persons have a right to go in with a lawyer into the inquiry. The government has a right to monitor whatever information is requested and to make sure that is in line according to the law. So it is not like in the olden days when an inquiry is called and person didn't recognize that they have rights. Everyone have their legal rights to make sure also that we secure the reputation of the BVI, and also to make sure the evidence that is being used is one that has been proven to be of a credible nature and reflects exactly what it is was being held by the government of the Virgin Islands in terms of information. And that's all I'll say about that for now, because it's an active, ongoing matter. And this one is obviously one that is being watched closely from many eyes. And even as I speak and answer, many of them will be watching, taking every word out of my mouth. So I would not respond any further than to say, Father God, who sit on high, continue to look after your children in the BVI and give us a just outcome.
Finances and economy have been a major conversation. As Minister of Finance, where are we as it pertains to our finances in the territory at present?
Well, we are not without challenges. And again, show me the country that has no financial challenges. But we have done a good job with our finance team to keep all our public officers hired. We have done a good job despite all that persons have said to keep us safe. But it took a lot of money to do so. Other than the grant that we received from Social Security, which all of it has hit its target and none of it has gone to any friends in any politician's pocket has been perceived. It has hit its target, but you can only help a certain amount of people with so many people hurting, and we continue to try. But at the same time, too, there are other monies that were involved in this, in terms of the feeding of the public of the Virgin Islands during the lockdowns, other measures to make sure that we are safe with health, making sure that the Dr. D. Orlando lab that we are talking about is fully certified and have all the resources that it needs to make sure that we can do testing right here in the BVI and be a certified lab to do our own testing. There was millions of dollars that was spent to get us where we are. So now that it seems like things seem to be normal, which they are not, persons readily would say, well, all right, let's move on and fix this road or fix this fix this wall or fix something else. But remember now, those resources went somewhere to keep us safe. So now we have to build back up now in order to address some of these areas. So our economy has not been challenged because of lack of being prudent. It's challenged because of what we went through with COVID-19. And we want to make sure that with COVID-19, now that we're moving forward, the initiatives that I've named before are coming into play. I'm very excited about our economy coming forward. And I must state that even with the economy moving forward, that's something that I cannot leave this interview without saying. With us moving forward with the economy, with us moving forward even to the road to whether we decide with self-determination, we're preparing our country to get there with certain legislation, not only to help the economy, but we have the Contractor General legislation, good governance legislation. No one forces us to do them. No one asks us to do them. But it's imperative that they be done if we're going to mature as a territory. So that will make sure that Contractor General legislation, that persons who receive government contracts receive it more in a fair manner, and that is out for public consultation. Then we have the Whistleblower Legislation that will make sure that if you see something that's gone wrong, you can come, you'll be protected by the law, and your job will be protected, and you can say and get paid for what you say once it is credible. And if not, you have to also pay us in terms of the government for giving us information that would have been damaging to person's character. But that is another legislation that's there. On Thursday, we're pushing to get, and we will be introducing, the integrity in public life to govern how persons operate, and to make sure there's the integrity across the board with persons in public life, and penalties and different penalties are going to be involved. So I want to say that because no other government has brought forward so many in legislation dealing with integrity in public life, dealing with good governance. That gets lost in the shuffle, but I'll not allow it to be lost. The money we spend got lost in the shuffle for some. I'll not allow it to be lost because that's millions of dollars and we're safe. And at the same time, too, now we're moving in all these other areas that I've stated before. I state some of them again, the medical school tourism. We're looking at making sure that expands us into the medical tourism area, because having these schools in the expertise, we'll be able to expand in that area. So persons will actually be coming to the territory now for healthcare in certain areas. We'll have persons coming to this territory to go to school in the medical area. Over 100 to 200 persons. Do you realize with 100 to 200 persons in here going to school, how many apartments, how many taxis will be able to be employed gainfully in car rentals and car sales? The supermarkets, the domino effect is huge. We'll be expanding the persons that will be allowed to come into the territory. If they're vaccinated, we'll be able to have less protocols for them when they come, increasing the number of persons that's coming. We'll also drop the fees for persons to operate and register the marine in the BVI. We're going to have innovation labs and business labs for our young people and persons who want to get in businesses and fast track their trade licenses so they could get in innovative areas. We're going to help with the agriculture to get the agriculture legislation to make sure there's a statutory body so that we can help with the food security. We're also helping with the export so that we can start to help our people to start to export some of their products. There are plethora of areas that we're looking at that have not even touched the surface of some of them that we're looking to push and help our economy. And that I must thank God for the wisdom for our government to do it. And we're going to have more discussions with people of the Virgin Islands to make sure that even more ideas will come forward, and we'll take them up so that we can now move and live and work in the COVID-19 era. I'm really excited about the future of this territory because I know that what God has blessed, no man can curse even if they try.
Honorable Premier, we do look forward with anticipation to seeing the fruition of many of the number of initiatives that you have just spoke about and spoke of during the course of our interview. We have to touch on our regional brothers and sisters, St. Vincent Relief. We have been hearing that provisions are being made to facilitate Vincentians affected by the volcano, and that Vincentians, allegedly nationals living in the BVI, will be allowed to host family members for up to some 6 months. Is this the case? And if not, or so, what have the conversations been like regarding St. Vincent assistance? What has the dialogue been between your government, of course, PM Ralph Gonzalez, and of course the council, Bishop Charles Locally? What does that look like?
Again, our government was proactive months ago with the council, Bishop Ishmael Charles. It wasn't popular in some areas, but one thing about leadership is sometimes you have to just go ahead and lead. And we have so many persons in our territory that are from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we saw it only fitting to cement that relationship formally with the council. Now, God really knows the beginning to the end. We didn't realize now the significance it would play at such an early time. And I must thank Bishop Ishmael Charles and all his staff and even his family, his wife and all of them for what they've been doing to help mediate in a time like now when our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent are experiencing not only COVID-19. Could you imagine that, Ron? Not only COVID-19, but a volcano. That is what you call extra stress.
Yes.
And that is why we must pray for our brothers and sisters even more now than ever. We had the opportunity yesterday with the OECS heads of government to sit with SEDIMA and other entities and all the leaders of the entire Caribbean diaspora. And my whole government were able to sit and be a part of that call and listen to Honorable Ralph Gonzalez address us, and also to hear all the support that's pouring in from all the different islands, from Martinique to Guadeloupe to St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Dominica, where Honorable Skerritt is the chair, and I really give him credit for making sure that he facilitated this meeting. And we were able to also give inspiration and also to offer prayers and support to Honorable Ralph Gonzalez as he explained to us some of the situations. Ironically, he said a few things that I think that the public should know. He is working out with us what would be the official channel through SEDIMA and others to have any goods or materials or even cash that's coming to St. Vincent to go through, because already they were experiencing the persons who have other negative mindset to try to capitalize on a disaster, which, as I said, these things are everywhere. But you have to make sure that you nip them in the bud as much as can, or manage, put systems in place to manage them to make sure that you eliminate or reduce them. So he was now today sending us some of the information so that we can know exactly what all our official documents coming out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are seeing a lot of paperwork circulating saying this is from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, sent to this, sent to that, sent to the other. So we're making public announcements, and we're going to also be releasing government announcements and posters, etc., so persons could know what to watch for, what to be vigilant about, to make sure that you don't fall prey, while your heart is soft to help, that you don't fall prey for some of these scams. So he was very clear and clearly articulating that to us. Also, we made it clear to him in terms of all of us would need to know what kind of numbers and how we would go about persons who would want to leave St. Vincent. But he also mentioned some unique things, that some of the people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a good portion of them don't want to leave also. And that's understandable. When you have a home and that's the only place that you have known and you live there for years, and it's very difficult to ask someone to move. Even in the midst of a crisis, when your home is gone, it's not an easy feeling, and to be uprooted and replanted in another land is very difficult. So he said it's not as much persons as is being connotated wants to leave like that. Some of them have to. Some of them they have no other choice. But even those, he said, most of them have difficulty wanting to leave. But the numbers now, we are getting that narrowed down in terms of what the BVI can handle at this time. Okay. And I want to say too, Ron, that we have to help St. Vincent and the Grenadines. When we look at this, they have helped us tremendously with Irma. And I have learned in my research in the 1800s, and I have researched this and also found out from one lady who's a good historian, that in the 1800s, with certain slaves that were here, when they shipped them out on Christmas Eve, I forget what exact year in the 1800s, down to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that is why some of the heritage of them coming up through the lineage, actually, even with Salt Island residents and some of them, that have family, and their names came out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So the history is even deeper than some of us even know, because of us not knowing this information for whatever reason, but I want to bring it out. So we are helping, and we're going to make statements. The Honorable Carvin Malone, I must thank him, also have secured a badge to leave. I think it's either the 20th or the 21st, and more information will be coming out of that. We encourage the civic organizations here to continue your telethon, continue your fundraising, continue your material gathering, and all the information will come together so that we can do the shipment and have them go to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And let's work together on this, no matter what our political affiliations are, no matter what our differences are, no matter what our likes are. Let's work together for one common goal to help our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and Grenadines, and let's keep them in our prayers.
Honorable Premier and Leader of Government Business, we thank you so much for your time today. You've spent quite a bit of time with us, and we want to make sure that you know that you're always welcome. Don't stay away as long as you have. You're welcome to come and have a conversation with us anytime. Before you go, some persons do forget that our elected representatives are elected by particular districts, and I also always like to enjoy giving our members an opportunity to greet their residents. So before we go, please do greet the members of the 1st District before you head out.
I want to thank you. I want to greet the people of the 1st District. For them over the years, you know, the only currency I could repay them with is gratitude. And because they have been very good to me, they have helped me to mature as a person, they have helped me to mature as an elected official. I thank them so much. Being Premier Minister of Finance, you have to juggle the time with that and the district, because you have to make sure that you stay on top of all the international pressures that comes against this territory and is coming against this territory, so that we can have a territory. But at the same time too, you also have to make sure you take care of the needs of District 1, and being as Premier, you have to make sure that you balance it out with all 9 districts. But I love the people of the 1st District, just like I love all the people of this territory. I also want to thank my family and those friends who are around me, who will continue to be real, as we say, to tell me what I need to hear, and not to tell me what I need to hear and not what I want to hear. And I also want to thank all the prayer warriors in the 1st District who continue to pray for me and in the entire Virgin Islands, and who continue to pray for these Virgin Islands. Let me tell you something, Ron. You see what happened in places like, and nothing against it, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and even the spillover in Barbados and many other areas. The BVI is just a prayer away, has kept all of this away from us and other things. And we cannot underestimate the power of prayer. No matter who come against us, no matter how strong they look, no matter how strong they seem, once we continue to stay prayed up, and once we continue to fulfill purpose from District 1 to 9, and stay within God's purpose, the best days of these Virgin Islands, the 1st District, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9, and not our yesterdays, but rather our tomorrows. So do not lose hope, because once you lose hope, you lose God, because God is hope, and in Him there's liberty. So I just want to encourage our people never to lose hope. We can have different opinions, and we can fail at times, but we are not failures once we don't lose hope in God.
Honorable Premier, thank you so much. Viewers, that is all the time we have, but of course that is not all the content. Be sure to tune in at 6 p.m. This evening, where my colleague Jovan Wilson and I will be bringing you the daily happenings, both locally, regionally, and internationally. We have a number of stories that we're looking at, of course, watching closely and supporting our brothers and sisters over in St. Vincent, as well as a number of initiatives being done locally. Of course, the Rotary Telethon that's coming up. We have all the details. It's always a pleasure. Do enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Ron Grant. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye. Happy Tuesday.